awesome so far. We told you we're going to have a great party and celebration, and thanks for being a part of it. And Natasha has done a phenomenal job today, right? Now, not only has she been an awesome host for our 10th annual Brainathon, she is also one of our experts. So I'm going to get to interview her now. And I caught her at a point in her career right now where she's like streaking through the sky like a star. Home in London, home in Vancouver, home in LA, making a ton of money, living the life, yachts, cars, beautiful life. But it always wasn't that way. As a matter of fact, she had to go from the streets to the stars and take her mess and turn it into the epic success that she is achieving right now. And without further ado, Natasha, thank you for being such an awesome host on the Brainathon. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, John. It is such a pleasure to be here with you. I've had the best day with all of your incredible audience today, getting to know them and hanging out here in the amazing party arena for Brainathons. Thank you for having me.
All right, so you and I met on Clubhouse during this COVID craziness, right? And your rooms were filled with people who were listening to your story. And I discovered that you and I actually share a lot of similarities. I got into trouble with the law when I was younger. I did drugs when I was younger. I ended up, doing a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, and I was voted most likely to fail. And I know that you had some very, very dark times in your life. You struggled with addiction. You struggled with a lot of things that took you down to the bottom of the barrel of life. Can you talk to us a little bit about that right now?
Where you see me now is not where I began. I always say to people, never judge me by who I am today. Judge me by how many times I've fallen down and gotten back up off my feet.
So I'm like super curious right now. How did you even get involved or addicted to drugs at such a young age?
I think, one thing leads to another. When you're young and you get into the wrong crowd, you get into the wrong environment, you start to allow thoughts and self-limiting beliefs and self-sabotage to creep up on you. And all of a sudden, no one goes into it thinking, I want to be an addict or I'm going to be an addict. They go into it thinking, I'm going to go and have a good time. And I'm going to maybe drown out my emotions and the things and the traumas that I've been through. Like when I was sexually abused in my late teens, I was trying to drown out those kind of sorrows through the drugs and the drink and what else. And from there, one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I found myself addicted. I found myself at my lowest place. I found myself near-death experiences multiple times because of something which I didn't know was going to take me to that dark place.
So in the depths of your addiction, this craziness in life, what were you feeling at that point in your life?
When you're in that dark place, you just want to keep drowning out those thoughts, but you also want to get out. But I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the techniques. I didn't have the mentors. I didn't have the you in my life at that moment to be able to draw me out of it. I never had the support around me. So I just didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe I could get out of it. But actually, the truth is, if I'd had the tools that I had when I had that breakthrough moment, and who I am today when I overcome fear so easily and turn it into fuel. If I'd had that back then, that addiction would have stopped. It would have knocked it on the head so much sooner, and I never would have ended up on the streets with my young son.
So I know you were married for a short period of time, and I know you had a little son, and then you got divorced. And I also know that you ended up homeless for a short period of time with your little boy. What was that like? What was going on then?
I remember, John, sitting in the apartment me and my son were in at the time, the day before we went onto the street to nowhere. I call it the day before we left for nowhere. And I was sitting there and I was packing all of his toys into a bag, these black trash liners. And I was tying them up, and my little son was looking, saying, as he was falling asleep, he kept saying, stop, Mama, what you doing? And I felt so sad and so bad. He didn't know why I was doing it, what I was doing. And my son was asking me why I was packing his toys up. And knowing that we had nowhere to go, I just said, we're moving out of here, son. And I'll show you something amazing soon, not knowing where we were going. And that was one of the darkest moments of my life. In fact, knowing that I had been such a bad role model for him, I thought I would have been better off dead. And in that dark place, I just packed all my things. And I remember sitting there thinking, in a few hours' time in the morning, we're out of here, 11 a.m., and I have nowhere to go. No woman should ever go to that place. No human should ever be in that place where they have nowhere to go. But it was from that dark place that I was able to recognize enough is enough.
All right, so drug addiction, being homeless, single mom, in the depths of despair, down at the bottom of the barrel of life. Was there a moment that something happened and you turned it around? I know we've talked about this before. Share it with the people who are watching around, because everybody who's had a setback or is in the midst of a setback now, I know can have a comeback. So talk to me.
So the shift was after the hostels, and already that was bad enough, but that wasn't enough for me to wake up and smell the coffee, right? It was when I was at my mother's wedding in South Africa, and I remember vividly standing in front of a mirror, and I was listening to Denzel Washington's graduation speech in the background. I'm sure we all have something that motivates us, and that moment was my thing. And I listened to it, and I started standing in front of this mirror, and I started preaching life over myself, saying, this is not you. This is not who you're born to be. This is only temporary. And I was allowing his voice to activate something inside of me that would change my life forever. And I took action, and I committed to this new version of me. And in fact, can I show you something I bought today? So I got this book, Once Upon a Time, and this is my second one that I have of it, and I wrote inside of it a story about myself, and I rewrote in the third person past tense a story about myself as though it had already happened. And I said, Natasha changed her life. She became a role model for her son and to others in the world. She went on to coach thousands of people and change her own life and change others' lives through her story. And I wrote this story in my book. I said I financially changed my story, my money story. I changed everything in that bit of paper right there, in that book, my journal. And within those pages, within those notes, I started to believe it, because obviously when you journal, you activate the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex in your brain, which is proven that you are more likely to achieve your goals faster simply by journaling and writing it down. So I wrote it down, and that was that pinnacle turning point that changed my whole trajectory of the rest of my life of where I am now.
I love this. So you write out something that's not real in your Once Upon a Time book. That reminds me of two things. Number one is I have my Exceptional Life Blueprint with my money story and my life's goals and dreams, and I lay it all out, and every day I look at it, and we teach every one of our clients, as you know, to create a new money and life story. And then we use Inner Size every day to imprint that on their conscious and subconscious minds so that they actually start to think and feel in ways that are aligned with that. And I mentioned earlier when we started today, is you've got to create a new identity to match the destiny that you want. And you did that. Now, after you wrote this out, what did you do with it? Because a lot of people write out this stuff. I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that anymore. New cars, new houses, more money, a slimmer body and a better relationship. But writing it's one thing. What did you do with it after you wrote it?
So after I wrote it down, I continued to write it down. So I wrote down page, 1, then the next day, and I committed to it. And I just kept writing it down and adding more feeling and emotion into it. So instead of it just being a basic story, I continued to believe it. And not only that, I used different visualization techniques, different books I started to read, different podcasts I started to listen to. I started to rewire my brain, create new neural pathways in my brain, and take action. I got myself into a program, and that is where my life shifted, because I was in a community. I had accountability partners. I got into a place where I knew I'm getting better. I'm going to heal. I'm going to get out of this. And there is no way back now because I'm committed. And once I took that first step, got into that action state, I decided, I just made a decision. Enough was enough. And today is the first day of the rest of my life.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Now, I just love your commitment. And I love that you said yes to yourself and you backed that up with action. I know that you are inspiring somebody who's watching right now. So thank you for that. And with that said, did you ever feel that you're not smart enough, not good enough, not worthy enough, or did your limiting beliefs ever get in your way? Like, how did you deal with the internal struggle that sometimes happens when we have a current reality and you're at the bottom of the barrel there and you want this new life for you and your son? Did you ever feel those fears or have limiting beliefs? Or were you at such a low point in your life that it was only up from there?
When you're in that low point, there is nowhere other to look other than up because everything is so low. I'd hit rock bottom emotionally, physically, spiritually, in every single way. Financially, I was at rock bottom. And so when you hit rock bottom, your limiting beliefs are at their lowest anyway. But it was about now trying something different. Because if I always did what I always did, I'll always get what I always got, which I now teach my students. And so I knew I have to transform. I have to try something a little bit different and I will see a different result. And I knew if I commit, if I change and I shatter these limiting beliefs and I rewire and hardwire into my brain a new belief system through writing my new story, I will change who I am and I will let go of this guilt, this shame, the resentment for myself. I hated myself. I was suicidal at my worst point, John. My story is, it was painful. I'm sure someone listening today, you've been through something trying and testing, but just know, if I have managed to get up off the floor from rock bottom and pull myself up from rejection by society, my parents, the disappointment I had of myself, let alone the disappointment I have for the world of the amount I put myself through, but if I can do it, you can do it.
Natasha, you've touched the lives of so many people today, and I know from doing 10 brainathons now, there's somebody out there right now thinking or feeling that it's too far gone. They can't do this. They're too young. They're too old. They're too this or not enough of that. What would you say to that person about the Winning the Game of Money brain training coaching program and their ability to transform their life by getting into it today?
I was skeptical too. I didn't believe in myself. So if you're listening and you're that person, like John said, and you describe it and you fit into that box, just know I was there too. I needed to see the facts. But when you understand there is science behind every single thing that you've learned today, there is science, there is proven results of people who have also transformed their lives. I just say, try something different. If you have not seen results in what you're currently doing and you're already living the life that you like, then no need to try anything. But if you are not living the life of your dreams abundantly, you don't have everything around you desire, you don't have all the homes you desire, you don't have the amount of money you want to give to charity every year, or you don't have any purpose, if you don't have all of the things that you want at the highest level, then you've got to try something a little bit different. You have to try rewiring and unwiring what you know to grow.
Wow, I love that. Did you all hear that? Unwire what you know to grow. That is priceless. Listen, Natasha, best-selling book, phenomenal career, making a difference with impact and influence in the lives of so many people. I'm so excited that you're here and sharing, from your heart and, more importantly, from your real life experience. So thank you so much for that. And how do you shatter limits and remove obstacles at each stage of growth?
So fear, to me, is just false evidence appearing real. And someone who tuned in at the beginning, you guys will know I mentioned that at the very start. Fear doesn't really exist. And it's about understanding how to transform that fear into fuel. And that's exactly what I did. You have to shatter who you are. You are glass all around you, right? And it's beautiful if it's beautiful, and while it's beautiful, but when it's not, it's not. And if you need to shatter that version of you to reveal, like an onion peeling back, the inner core of who you are, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but you grow from the discomfort. Comfort is the enemy of growth. You've got to grow through it, and I did. I had to peel back layers of shame, of guilt, of thinking I had to be a certain way and performing a certain way to get a result, when actually all of it was bollocks. It didn't mean anything. I had to peel it back to the raw level. And if you also have a low self-esteem like I did, I was in my lowest point. I was near death. I wanted to die. I thought I'd be better off not here, dealing with addiction, dealing with having no home, being in these crappy little hostels around these people who are drug addicts sitting next to me when I'm trying to look after my son. It was the dirtiest place I've ever been in as a single mom trying to raise a kid. And if I've got out of that and can build back belief in myself, then no matter what you're going through, you can overcome it too.
I love it. I love it. I love it. We teach people how to inner size. We help them upgrade their knowledge and skills. We coach them on achieving success step by step at their own pace. And yet, there's still somebody that's sitting on the fence right now wondering, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? Like, what would you say to that one person who is still uncertain after seeing the experts and all of the evidence we have, the guests and all of their successes, people just like them, but somehow they're at home on the fence?
The person who's on the fence, try something different. Just make one decision today, one decision. Whether it's to tap the link and try a new program, or whether it's to apply one piece of knowledge that you've learned from today, make a decision to commit, however small or big that is. Just try something a little different, because here's the truth. If I didn't get into that program, if I didn't make a commitment to try something different when I was in my darkest days, when I thought there was no hope for me, the world doesn't want to know Natasha anymore, the world doesn't care about her. If I had allowed that to pull me down and hold me down, I would still be on the floor. But luckily, I believed that something would help me to rise up and rise through my pain and transform, as John says, my mess into my message. And I did that exact thing. So for whoever's sitting on the fence, what have you got to lose when you have everything to gain from winning the game of money?
Thank you so much, Natasha. High five to you. Actually, high five to everybody. Hasn't this been awesome? Now, what I want you to do is give it up for Natasha in the chat. Let her know how she's inspired you today, all right? And with that, as you do that, we're going to be right back.
I remember sitting out by my pool